Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Telos Initiative podcast. I'm Angelo Cole.
I'm Chris Vigil.
And I'm Matt Mays.
Today, we wanted to talk about humor. Now, humor is an interesting topic because we don't really know exactly where it comes from. We don't know why we laugh at things. To have a sense of humor seems to be more of a subjective thing in nature. So it's hard to tell if there's like an objective sense in which humor is real. But I figured I'd prompt you guys and see what you thought about that.
Is humor real?
That's a good way of putting it. Is humor actually real, or is it all in the mind?
Is humor any more or less real than tragedy?
Depends on what you mean by tragedy, right? If you mean tragedy in the performative sense, like a Shakespearean tragedy, then I think that is akin to what humor is. But if you mean tragedy as in a tragedy, like an actual event that happens to you, like the death of someone in the family,
well,
that's objectively real.
If I do remember my lessons from Robot Chicken, comedy is just tragedy plus time.
Sure, well, there's something to be said there. So is comedy really just a unique response to tragedy and suffering in our lives? Is that what you could sum up humor as?
I think it can be a function of that. But let's look at what happens when something is funny, right? There's something about that you can understand. You have to understand the joke, right, in order to get it, or else it's going to go over your head. But there's also something that is unexpected about it. Like if you knew what's coming at the end, or sometimes even if you don't know what's coming at the end, like, oh my god, I know the punchlines. This one's good. This one's so great. Like they're like you're the one person who knows that you've heard this joke before, but someone is telling it to a new group of people, and you're like just waiting for the kind of raucous laughter to happen, and you still know like, oh, this is a great joke. It's like familiar, but delivered in a novel way, it seems, which is a really interesting combination of something that you can conceive of, and I know you're just like itching to get a...
Yep.
I mean, yeah, I think there is something to novelty about humor, right?
Well, sure, there is something novel about humor. Like if I tell a joke to a new group of people, that's going to get me going. Absolutely. Also, at the same time, I just have this joke that I tell to myself all the time. It always brings a smile to my face, even though I know exactly what the punchline is. I know exactly what's going on. I'm also telling it to myself like 99% of the time. If I've got a grocery cart, or I'm on a steering wheel in my car, and just pretending like I'm driving a motorcycle, like broom, 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 broom. Dustpan, broom, broom. And then if I want to go really fast, I go, vacuum, vacuum. And it's stupid, but it makes me smile.
Yeah, that's pretty stupid.
But that's the thing. There's no such thing as intelligent humor. I mean, you can make...
I disagree.
I
beg to
make
differ.
jokes about, like, science or, deep-rooted philosophical concepts, but at the end of the day, it's just a look at something chaotic, I guess, right?
I don't know. Well, let's maybe think about different reasons why we laugh, right? So you have slapstick humor. You have people getting kicked in the balls,
Stepping
on a rake, getting hurt, or even just doing an unexpected physical move that gets a laugh out of you. Why does that get a laugh? Probably something about the unexpected nature of it. Maybe there's a little suffering in there mixed in. And then there's profanity, right? People love to laugh at something because generally it's so ugly to look at that it's almost like it's almost like an easier way to look at the dark side of humanity, right?
Yes.
When you make a joke about something really dark humor and profanity, it gets a laugh because maybe there's a discomfort there. Or maybe it's just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they're talking about this and bringing a light to it. Something about that awakens the spirit, right?
Absolutely. Or something's like so dark, you just have to laugh at it. I mean, I think we've heard that all the time growing up, right? Mm-hmm. Life is just so absurd, you have to laugh about it sometimes.
There's also jokes where you're kind of talking about something familiar, but it puts a little twist on the end. You know, like a joke where you start one way, you think it's going a certain way, and then all of a sudden it's completely different than what you thought it would be. And I can't think of a good one off the top of my head, but I'm sure there's some Mitch Hedberg.
I got one yesterday. I was this just randomly came to me, and I was laughing about it, especially like, my two parents, like super Christian, right? And I'm like, what if God came out with a Bible number 2, and he's just like, we're telling him like, oh my God, have you guys heard? The sequel is here. It turns out it's twice as thick as the original. If you thought that if you got a lot out of the first one, man, that sucker's dead. Sink your teeth into that. Sink your teeth into that thing, right? It's just, I had fits of laughter, like driving down, just thinking about this. Like, they made another one. And like, I love the Bible. I love, I hold a lot of value in the Bible. I can also look at that and be like, what a hilarious thought. Like, God just dropped Bible number 2.
I mean, and let's think about what's funny about that, right? Part of it is the Bible is considered something sacred, right?
Yeah.
And you're almost like making fun of it. There's a profanity there.
Yeah.
And a twist there. It's also unexpected, right? Mm-hmm. You wouldn't expect anything more about the Bible to be written.
Yeah.
I almost feel like explaining it totally kills the joke. It's
it does. It does. Well, we can't,
because you want the novelty to be there. So explaining it a little more is like, oh my God, shut up.
No. I appreciate that. I still find it hilarious.
Well, I'm glad I didn't kill it for you. Let's talk about killing a joke too. When you repeat a joke over and over and over and over, it dies. Why? Because there's no more novelty to it.
Yep.
Unless it's a really stupid joke like mine, and you're just like, oh, life is hilarious.
I think it just depends. Just depends on your type of humor, I guess. Some people can hear the same joke over and over.
Well, even just now, I told you the joke a few minutes ago, and then I changed a perspective on it. You posited a philosophical thing, like, dead jokes are dead, whatever. And then I was like, oh, let's actually bring up that past topic again, but look at it from a different angle. And we laughed again just now.
Yeah, there's something about the novelty of it. Like, think about puns. Like, all you're doing, you're not even doing anything dirty or profane. It has nothing to do with, like, the dark side of humanity. All it is like taking two concepts and kind of mashing them together and creating something clever that people are like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It's like we're creating different associations. There's an aliveness to it too, where you're able to make new neural pathways about a concept that you might have thought you're familiar with, and you're like, oh my God, this is presented to me in this fun, interesting, novel way that lights up all these different parts of my brain. Like, I never would have thought of that before unless it was presented to me in this way.
Absolutely. So there's a sense of discovery in humor. Like, when you really find something funny, maybe part of that is there's a joy in discovering something that you didn't connect in your mind, and your body's rewarding you for that.
Yeah. Oh, and that's it. Let's think about
why
do we have the body rewarding it. I like that. Like, why do we respond in this way? Like, there's a shaking up. There's like a, I know I look silly.
Well, there's something funny about it.
yeah, but think about it, like a belly laugh, or it's like there's a shaking up inside you. So your body is having a reaction, like a joyful, joyful shaking up reaction.
It's not just the shaking up either. It's like there's a smile. If you're laughing hard enough, you're probably like. Like you're silent
Attention.
and you're crying.
You ever had this happen where you laugh so hard at something that you kind of squint in one eye a little bit? You're like,
I think there's an air of mischievousness to that, like you guy.
Oh, that's probably true. Mischief.
yeah. Oh,
Mischief
yeah.
is like a whole category of humor.
Yeah, the
yeah.
Batman's arch nemesis, the Joker, is a causer, is a
Maker.
mischievous chaos,
An
maker,
agent of
right?
chaos, if you will.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, where have we heard that?
It's probably Batman movie.
Yeah, it was the Batman movie. Yeah.
It's definitely.
Okay,
it.
so yeah, well, this is interesting, right?
Yeah, how
Chaos,
about,
mischief?
Can we go?
How about
go-
dry humor?
Oh,
Give me an
Like,
example.
probably how I just addressed you. Where I was like, it's in the
You
Batman
deadpanned?
movie.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
in the
there was
Batman
dry
movie.
humor
Yeah,
there,
it's in
right?
the Batman movie. Yeah, right.
yeah.
Because it's almost like it was so obvious, but it's funny to watch.
And it's
You squirm.
It's fun to pretend like you don't know something. Like, oh yeah, I didn't know that before. It's pretty obvious. Yeah, I guess.
Like Matt Walsh is like really good
Oh,
at
yeah.
that type of humor.
Deadpan, dry humor.
Good old deadpan. Love it. Have you guys ever seen Parks and Recreation before?
I've seen a little bit of that.
Okay, it's like Ron Swanson. For people who haven't seen it or aren't familiar, that dude is the king of deadpan, right? He's like this like serious like man's man. He's got like a mustache. He just knows how to do everything. And he goes to Home Depot. This guy works there. He rolls up and he goes like, "Hey, can I help you with anything?" He just goes, "I know more than you do."
Absolutely.
Straight past him.
I think my favorite Ron Swanson moment is when he has that young secretary April, right? And he's like, "Your only job is to make sure I don't have any meetings." And he's like a politician, like he
Did
needs
that
to
pretty
have
good,
like
too.
a whole bunch of meetings all the time. And she's like, "I won't let you down." She keeps all of the people out forever.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, she does.
But I mean, I don't know. You have to metacognizate about that situation. It's weird metacognizating about humor. You have to like laugh at it first, and then think, "Why did I laugh? Why?" And it layers upon itself in a
I mean, some
obscure
people
way.
do. Some people don't think about it at all. They're just like, ha, and they move on.
Yeah. But we're here to metacognizate, sir. So
It's our job. We're gonna go surgical.
We have one job.
We go surgical. You have one job. That's what they're all saying. You had one job, guys. You have one job.
well, it's the Telos initiative, right? Our one job is to discover the Telos of humor.
That's good. That's good. Let's actually dive into that. So the telos being the purpose of humor. So I like to think every emotion has some sense of purpose, right? Anger is there because it gives you adrenaline and it gives you the capacity to face something dangerous or something that protect your family or something like
Defending
that. Protect
your priorities,
protect
right?
your community.
Yeah.
It's a defense mechanism. So is fear, right? Fear keeps you away from danger. So you can find purpose in that. You should be afraid of things that are dangerous. If you're afraid of something that isn't dangerous, you have misplaced fear. Sadness, I think that's probably a release, right? You build up a lot of tension psychologically, and you need to release it somehow, and something with the tears and having a good cry. You always feel better after a really good cry, right?
Yeah.
There's a tension release there. So
Probably
what
not
is
only
humor?
that though, but so you said something that anger. Well, so fear helps you stay away from the danger. I would argue that anger helps you face a danger, and it doesn't have to necessarily be physical, like a tiger, or it could be like a spiritual or mental danger too. Like I'm really putting myself at risk with my manager if I do this, but dang it, like I can't take any more BS at work.
The oomph, right? Yeah.
Well, we even call it fight or flight response. That's a part of your brain dedicated to anger versus fear.
So as time passes on and we experience more and more tragedies, like especially us in our mid-30s now, I mean, looking back on my life, I think we need humor to look at that tragedy, right? Tragedy plus time, and say, this can't be all bad. I need a method of looking at life in a way that brings a smile to my face.
I wonder if humor is something further along the evolutionary chain, and only animals with like a certain level of intellect experience it, or if it's like a recent evolutionary trait, or if all animals have to laugh for some reason, and it's built into like just about every creature.
It takes at least some modicum, right, of rationality to have humor. Doesn't it?
Well, when I think of an animal that probably has a sense of humor, I think of a chimpanzee.
I was just gonna say monkeys.
Like
right?
you see monkeys straight up like, right? And it's funny thinking about it because if you think of humans as evolved monkeys, we look so silly when we laugh. We're just like those chimpanzees. Like, what are you doing? If I was an alien and I didn't have humor whatsoever, if I was like Spock or something, I'd be like,
right.
these creatures are so weird.
What are these irrational creatures doing?
They have to like freak out and have this bodily reaction to every time they discover something. They're so weird.
I'd like to talk about this archetypally too, because we mentioned the trickster, I think. Right?
Yes.
Going to the magician. The magician is really the faculty of, imagining and exploring and conceiving, right? But there is the trickster element that's in there, right? And this, this often happens within that part of our psyches is we're exploring and we're seeing like what is it that we're testing these, we're testing out the waters, we're testing these like darker sides too, and maybe that's a way of like going into the darkness again, like the mischief, and being able to say like what's fun about this, or like what's enjoyable about going into these
there's an exploratory element to it.
Yeah, exactly.
Just to briefly recap for our audience, like a magician, like a good magician is like a spiritual leader, but the trickster is like an intellectual manipulator, right? I'm just
I also think there's something to the notion of the trickster being the inversion of the sovereign. So if you think of a king, the king is very serious, and the king takes his role seriously. He's about order, and he's got a crown pointing up, and all of the little arrows on the crown are like aimed higher, and the king is about what's sacred, right?
Yeah.
And you invert that, and the king becomes the jester, and he's got a crown too, but his crown points in different directions. And he's got a scepter, but it's almost like he's making fun of the king, and he's taking the seriousness that we have and saying we can laugh about it sometimes.
Yeah,
and you even see that in our rituals, like we have holidays dedicated to inversion, right? Like something like Mardi Gras. It's like a celebration. It's a carnival. Carne meaning meat, meaning the body, right? It's a celebration of the lower, and you have to take the time to.
It's revels, right? It's a party.
There's something to the Sabbath there, right? The seventh day is a day of rest. You can't always be stuck in monotony.
Yeah.
You have to flip things around sometimes and twist them and laugh at them in order to have a healthy society.
So my wife and I go to this thing called Carnival Sensual. It's a quarterly event. It's a burlesque show. Right?
Oh wow!
And so we go to church. We're like very, spirituality is very, very deep, important part of our lives, genuinely. And we also kind of like to get down at these events. And what this
For sure.
Yeah. So it's creative. It's sexy. It's funny. It's irreverent in all kinds of different ways. Right. And we've been to like 6 of these that they happen in Denver, and they'll always have a different theme around them. Right. And if I were to describe the type of people that go to these shows or participate in these shows, it's usually people who have been on the fringes, or people who are like, you might think of as like weird, or some like outcast or something like that. It's very counterculture, right? and it's a way to release that. It's a way to really kind of let loose in a lot of ways, right?
Maybe there's a release to laughter and humor in a similar way that sadness is like a response to tragedy. Humor is a response to like novelty, but there's still a form of release there.
I'm going to maintain that it's still a reaction to tragedy.
Okay. Perhaps
not always. I'm not saying that all humor is based on extreme levels of trauma. Like my little broom joke. There's nothing traumatic about that. It's just dumb.
But there's
fun.
discovery there, right? Even in a modicum.
I can't watch comedy movies all the time. Right? There's a time and a space for comedy. Mm-hmm. I can't just constantly put it in. I think you're right in that it's a release from the mundane.
Okay, there you go. So it's totally about novelty, right?
Got you guys.
It's totally about novelty.
You got me with that
because there's a repetition to your cycle. Like if you're working 6 days a week, that week gets exhausting. And you need a break from it. And you need some time to celebrate, to go to the bar, to kind of do something for yourself. You need a refresh, and then you go into that week more productive.
Totally.
If you're working out, your muscles get tired. You get fatigue. You need a rest day in order to recover your muscles. And throughout the day, if you just kept going and going and going, your mind gets tired. You need to sleep after a certain point.
Yeah.
And even sleep is very similar to humor in that it's almost mysterious what the origins of sleep are. We almost don't know exactly why we have to sleep, but I think it has something to do with breaking mundanity.
Yeah. And going to the mind too. It's like thinking can take a lot of energy, you know? So if we're thinking and thinking all the time, and then after a while you get diminishing returns on that thinking. Like you've been thinking so what, like if you end up getting anxious and paranoid and all that type of stuff, I would say that you're like running on your tank with regards to the amount of energy that you have.
Just like muscle fatigue, right?
Exactly. And it's like humor rejuvenates and drums up energy in the body. Like when we're thinking about why movement like doesn't necessarily just take energy, but a lot of times it gives you energy, right? Like you feel more energized by these movements. But this is the shaking in one place, and the it's like a really efficient way of being able to move, sitting in one place and having that joyful release and that dopamine, you know, and all these different chemicals going through your body, right? And and your brain, you're in a better mood. You know, you're in a better state than you were before. Mm-hmm.
It's a refresh.
Oh yeah.
You see that idea all throughout different cultures too. Like think about baptism. Baptism is like a refresh, and it's a lowering into the water. And waters are often a symbol of chaos. I mean, think of Noah's flood. It's like a baptism of the world, right? There's a renewal there, a going down and coming back up, refreshed and reborn.
Yes.
So in such a powerful sense, humor is a descent, not necessarily in a negative way, but sometimes you're descending into the chaos and there can be some profanity there. But it's also a descent into the body, into the now, into the I think there is a sense in like be here now and enjoy the moment in humor versus like aiming forward. You get tired of the aim after a while.
Yeah.
And then you have to come back to like, hey, take a break, enjoy it, you're here, you're alive,
Yeah. Talking about,
Maybe there's a gratitude
lover,
there.
right? Talking about the lover archetype, right? The being here and now and pleasure and rejuvenation in the present tense. Absolutely.
Yeah, have a little sensuality, a little sensibility.
That's right.
The senses are all there.
Senses.
It's body. Body is always associated with the lower, right? So as you descend, you move closer into the body, and then as you ascend, it becomes more.
So I can't really physically feel my rationality, right? But if I tell a good joke that puts my rationality on its head, that causes me to feel it in a sense, right? In a sixth sense.
Well, it's interesting. Well, like let's say like you're a comedian on stage and you have like a bunch of people and you're having a collective humor experience, right? Say this is a fun place to go. Like you're the one kind of driving and you're the one telling the jokes. You're the one, but everyone is vicariously feeling that way through you too. Similar to how we would watch a character in a movie or a video game or playing as that character, and you are able to identify with that figure, right? So it's like you can be the actor quote on stage, and then everyone is also coming along with you. So then they're riding on your going into those humorous places. Right?
Yes.
So an individual experience can turn into a collective experience.
Oh wow!
Right.
That just lit off a little light bulb in my head because
go for it.
Thinking about the collective experience of humor, a lot of humor is bonding. Sometimes you're bonding at the expense of someone else. Some people can gather together and make fun of someone, and there's like a bonding in making humor, but sometimes it's negative in the sense that they're bonding over, making a scapegoat out of somebody.
Yeah.
Right.
Or it doesn't necessarily have to be, though. You can bond in humor about anything, making fun of anything, right? You could even bond over self-deprecation. So if I make fun of myself, it's a way for other people to relate to me, and they laugh, and then there's self-deprecating comedians.
In fact, doing that, some sort of self-deprecation takes the power away from anyone who might be making fun of you. They're like, I have this power over you. I can point and I can laugh. You're like, no, I can point and laugh at myself.
That's right.
Jerk.
That's right.
No one can hurt me more than me.
see Conan O'Brien, right? All the time.
Oh, yeah. So there's definitely a communal binding thing associated with humor because you never really... I mean, some people laugh alone, I guess, but really it's usually experienced as like a communal thing.
I laugh by myself all the time.
There's the self-deprecation.
Yeah, but I like we said a moment ago too about like laughing at, say, someone else's expense, and you could, this is a very important place to go to. Is like going back to it being a collective experience and the people that you are including in the humor experience coming along with you, right? Like they're able to laugh and they're able to go to those places. Then it's like, we all can laugh with this person, they're, but this is also interesting where when we're living in this time of like, all this is canceled, all this type of stuff. And I've wondered, like, why shows like South Park or Family Guy seem to get a pass. It's like, I never hear about that, Is it because they have too vast of an audience? Or maybe is it because they've made fun of all these different groups of people indiscriminately, consciously, and
I think there is something about that.
Very intelligently, right? But that's quite mysterious to me, like why they seem to be able to kind of... to walk
it's funny there's a border there, right? And it's like these are things that are okay to make fun of, and you step outside of that border and it becomes offensive. So there's some things that you shouldn't joke about, but you're right, some people get a pass for some reason. So there's some sense of morality there, right? Where we allow people to make jokes about certain things as long as it meets certain conditions. And there's definitely it probably depends on the culture, and it depends on like where sensitivities are. It could even depend on, different communities. Like one community might laugh at certain jokes. I'm sure stand-up comedians know this really well. Certain people will laugh at like really ugly, profane jokes about other groups of people or about themselves, and other groups will be like, that's not funny, that's not even cool. Because there's a moral boundary there.
So
Yeah.
I think
Super subjective.
I think maybe the archetype of humor has to touch on some spirit of irreverence, right? South Park, Family Guy, very irreverent shows, but they've made every joke in the book. I'll mention two, right? I think in the earlier seasons of Family Guy, some old lady was dead, and Peter like takes her out of the coffin and dances with her to disco music for whatever reason. In South Park, the main character Cartman kills Scott Tenorman's parents and then grinds them into a food and makes him eat his parents.
Yeah, it was dark.
Horrible. Very dark.
Yeah.
Very irreverent. We haven't canceled that show yet. It's been on for like 20 million seasons.
Something like that. Yeah.
It's hard to cancel established humor, because it's like they've already demonstrated that they have value. They've demonstrated that audiences will pay for that and watch that. And so to all of a sudden change your mind and say, hey, now this isn't okay, there's something wrong there.
Yeah. Well, and it's like, you got to think about the numbers too. Like thinking about, this is it. I mean, this is kind of, there are two sides to this. One, that like something is actually just crossed the line, and something that is just way beyond the pale, which, how do you even measure that? Like, like I said, one of those jokes, like that's pretty dark, right?
Yeah.
But then
That's a good question. Should there be a line?
Yeah. And on the other hand, you have people who watch the show and they're like, oh, this is way offensive. This, say they're just tuning in for like the first time and they'd never seen South Park before. They're like, this should be canceled. And then, you have like swaths of people who've been following the show for many, many, many years who are like, well, we like it. We're going to keep on watching.
There was a generational thing there, I think, because there was like a whole generation that was like, you can't joke about this type of stuff, or this is too profane. Like, you can't show your butt on TV, or you can't, like some of this stuff is just really ugly. It's not even funny. And the next generation was like, oh, I get to watch this in secret and my parents will hate it, but they won't let me watch it. And now there's like there's like a novelty to it, and a pushing of the boundary, and
there's mischief there.
Mischief. There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
I want to get back on this topic of like collective humor,
Okay.
because I have I'm a practicing Christian. I don't profess to be a good Christian necessarily, not all the time for sure, but I practice. I have a good sense of humor about Jesus. I have a lot of jokes about Jesus. I don't have any jokes about Odin.
Okay.
I do, because I'm not familiar with Odin, like as a deity or his lore that much. Right? Read American Gods, watched The Northman. Good movie, good book. But what if humor is like a demonstration of like how well you know something? Right? Familiarity breeds contempt, but it might also breed a good sense of humor about the topic.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that too, being someone who loves Norse stuff and all things Norse. Yeah.
That's why I was looking at you, man.
Dude, thanks for the segue, man. If you read through the Poetic Edda, like there are different parts of the Edda, different poems, right? Some of that stuff I was shocked is actually pretty hilarious. like some of the
Really?
Yeah. Oh my God. Some of the stories, and these are like ancient sacred texts in Norse culture, right? You're going through, and there's one story where Loki is trying to get into this party with all the gods, and they're all in there, and then this other god, he's like, hey, you can't go in there. He's like, I was not invited. I'm going in there, and he just proceeds to talk shit to every single one of them. He's just drinking and talking shit about every single one of these other gods, right? And there are some who are trying to like keep the peace and be cool, Odin included, right? And he just he returns the kindness and niceness with like, you did this and that. He just shreds them, and then they end up just giving him his comeuppance, and like they tie him up and they make snake venom drip onto him or something pretty painful. It's just like, you son of a bitch, broke in here and trying to and I'm just reading this, I'm like, these are like sacred texts. Like, this is hilarious.
It's funny because there's definitely a lot of similar stuff in like the Bible, right? You have some senses of profanity. And
Jesus tells a joke.
Jesus tells a joke
in the Gospels. Mm-hmm. So he's got all these people gathered around him, and he's like, "What you came to see? Did you see a guy like shaking a reed like this in the wind? No, you came to see like a prophet, a holy man." You want holiness? I can give that to you. I am the way, the truth, and the life.
That's funny.
I thought of another one recently too, where it's like you're thinking about the Sermon on the Mount and the was it the Sermon on the Mount with the loaves and the fishes where he multiplies
so the Sermon on the Mount's its own thing. The loaves and the fishes are a different story, but he probably said the Sermon on the Mount before.
So
I think he did do the loaves and fishes right after the Sermon on the Mount, if I remember correctly.
So I'm not far off, right?
I think
you're not far off. You're accurate.
So they had the loaves and the fishes, but then the masses then did have a sweet tooth, and Jesus said, "Check this out," and he sneezed. Jesus sneezes Reese's Pieces.
What?
And then the masses did proceed to pick up the pieces from the ground.
There's a really good...
Was good. No. Come on, man. Come on. Jesus.
I don't know. For me, that one's all right. It's a little out there for me.
There's something about saying or thinking Jesus sneezes Reese's Pieces.
Yeah, well, I mean, let's
even the cadence to the sentence. Jesus sneezes Reese's Pieces.
Yeah, man.
Jesus. I completely missed that. How did I miss that? That was super funny.
There you go.
See?
You got him.
See?
I heard a really funny joke from a Catholic priest. Because Catholics talk about the Virgin Mary as being sinless, right?
Yeah.
So he was talking about that story in the Bible where Jesus is rescuing the prostitute from being stoned, and he says, "Everyone, whoever has not sinned should cast the first stone." And then a huge rock comes and smacks the prostitute in the face. And then he says, "Mother, you stay out of it."
Damn. Did you say a boulder?
Just a huge rock. She just said a huge rock.
Little Virgin Mary.
Hey, she's got levitation powers, man. She must have telekinesis or
levitate that damn rock.
Yeah, that's a good one. I guess trying to get back into... There was a question that you asked earlier. I wanted to expand on that. And I can't remember what it was. Maybe it had something to do with the purpose of humor.
The telos of humor.
The telos of humor. We kind of started getting into it. Like every emotion
it's a release,
has a seam of...
And especially a release from the mundane. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but we I guess we kind of touched on that. We were talking about there is a release from mundanity, but there's also a novelty and exploration. And there's a bit of mischief in there. So I guess that could sum it up pretty well.
There are all kinds of elements in humor. You probably can't pin any single one on every joke or, any combination thereof, right?
Right.
Oh, think about that. Think about like the Big Bang. About like the nothingness and then the combustion, the explosiveness, right? The drumming up of the energy, the drumming up of aliveness, right? It's like, think about experiencing a mini Big Bang in the moment. It's like that moment of awe that you're like, whoa, takes you by surprise. And then,
that energy has to go somewhere. It might as well turn into kinetic energy.
Yeah.
I think in that... in doing that, right? In having this moment... There is like a physical sensation where you're like, wow. Like you laugh a little. Like, wow. Like how could something like that... I guess it's the king and the jester, right? This airy, beautiful thing that defies my reasoning and my logic is somehow tied also to this earth and my own sinfulness, right? The evil things that I've done.
Well,
like there's a connection there, and I don't know.
Yeah,
Was there humor before the fall?
Hold up. Can I hold it real quick? Like part of the sovereign too, going to the the leader and the sovereign and the jester. The sovereign primarily, right? Like in terms of the collective brings blessing in different ways, right? So it's like, I'm going to make it so that there is this joyful experience, that there is this, this collective joy, this humor. I'm going to bring that blessing to the masses. I'm going to bring that blessing not just to myself, but to people around me, right? And so then that makes the situation better.
Okay.
Well, yes.
Sure. I'm kind of trying to think what is the blessing the humor in this sense? Like, for the jester, the humor is the blessing.
Well,
it's the inverting.
The sovereign is the one with the blessing capacity, and then the jester is the one who is carrying it out.
Okay.
Right? The one who's carrying it out through the humor.
Okay.
Well, that conflicts with my understanding of those archetypes, but you've certainly delved a lot more deeper into it than I have.
Okay.
I would call, like, the sovereign has, right, like a blessing power that calls you up from the earth and brings you into wisdom and holiness and generation of prosperity.
And the jester does the same thing inverted. He brings you down, but in that sense, you can.
I like to think of it like kind of like that. Like the jester, like, hey, we're down here on the earth. I can still bring you up, but we're going to laugh about it.
Well, maybe because the jester is almost an inverter, if the world is already inverted, he's a positive force against the negative, right?
I think that's great.
He's a flipping of the flipping.
Perfect.
So in dark times when there's tyranny, you look to the comedians to shine a light and laugh at the tyranny.
Yes. I would love to pose. I would love to pose a Christian metaphor about that exact idea, right? Christ, the sinless one, who was the Messiah, who reconciled the earth and the heavens and all of us together, was crucified, right side up. Mm-hmm. But Peter, who sinned, who denied Christ and his salvation 3 times, but was redeemed, was crucified, asked to be crucified upside down. There is still redemption in that crucifixion, right? Peter died a holy man. He's a saint now, but he died inverted on a cross. You can, so there's still, right? King, jester.
Yeah.
And that's,
but still part of the royal court.
And that's still it's interesting when you think of the symbols, right? Like we have the right side up cross, and then we have the upside down cross, and we have our understanding of what those things mean, right? Like similar to like the pentagram with the right side up versus, as we know, like upside down is usually straight up satanic, right?
Well, you notice how Satan is an inverter. Satan himself is like, anytime you want to show something as satanic, you invert things.
Yeah.
It's like, take a cross, turn it upside down.
Yeah.
Now it's evil. Not necessarily in the case of St. Peter.
Well,
but
you can try, right?
That's an attempt to invert the good, right?
Yes.
And the pentagram, as I understand it, is like something to do with more Wiccan, like...
It's like Wiccan...
It represents humanity sometimes.
It's a complex symbol, but yeah, tied in with like magic and nature, and then the upside down is really like dark occult. I think that's pretty agreed upon, is that the upside down pentagram is like the dark occult side.
So I've only done a little bit of research on this, but there's who was that guy on the Midnight Gospel? Damien Eccles, I think, right? Practicing witchcraft user.
Oh, okay.
He talks about the banishing ritual of the pentagram, which is you have an altar, right, with the pinnacle symbol, right side up, circle around it, the whole deal. Not that as a Christian that I'm necessarily recommending these things, but it's just how it is. Mm-hmm. Now, I've read parts of the Levian Satanic Bible, and, the sigil of Baphomet is the upside down of that pinnacle. The 2 on top represent the horns of the devil, and the 3 on the bottom represent the Holy Trinity being subjected to the devil's horns that are on top. Along with Hebrew, Leviathan written in Hebrew around the circle.
Oh.
Interesting. Oh, and there's also this symbol too. It's like this is
devil horns, right?
This is an interesting symbol because this is like the metal horns popularized by the ineffable Ronnie James Dio, and where he got it from was, I think it was his grandmother used to do this sign. This is like a warding against evil. This is like a calling to the light. This is... And,
really?
I was watching the show True Blood recently. My wife and I have been really getting into this. And there's this character who is, the antithesis to vampires, right? She does this whenever she wants to, ward vampires and they come near her. She puts her finger horns up like this. Oh. And then this is to make them subdued, and she
then Spider-Man.
No, but that's... oh my God, I hadn't even thought of that. I hadn't even thought of that.
So in sign language...
I don't see if there is a connection.
In sign language, this is I love you.
Okay.
And then, so Spider-Man does this. Actually, in the comics, Doctor Strange does this to cast his spells.
Oh, so there's a magic element,
right,
to this.
But
this or this.
In Satanism, I love you is I love me.
Okay.
So, Levian Satanism is all about self-worship.
Yes. And then there's this.
I don't know if that's actually...
Happy llama. Sad llama. Itty bitty baby llama. Crazy llama. Super llama. Big fat mama llama.
You forgot Llama Llama Ding Dong.
Darn it.
One other thing I wanted to touch on was tickling.
Okay.
Laughing because of a physical sensation. It's strange because there must be a novelty to it because you can't tickle yourself.
You're sensitive about your body, right? So if someone else is touching, you're like, oh, no, that's sacred. Stop that.
Oh. But you laugh about it.
Yeah.
It's not painful.
It is. Well, and going to the archetypes too, it's like the warrior and the lover usually both have to do with the body, and it's like the warrior is the forthgoing one, the action and the charging, but then the lover is the being witness and the pleasure and the connection. It's like that's a very loverly thing, right? Where it's like, oh, you're in my space, but it's fun,
I guess, there's a crossing a boundary there, but it's not in a negative sense. It's in a novel sense because you don't know. It's almost like, rationally, but your body doesn't know what to expect, maybe?
Well, sure, but if I'm on the battlefield and my opponent starts tickling me, that's just gonna piss me off. That's not gonna make me laugh.
Well, I don't know. It's sort
Maybe.
of...
I mean, I've never been in that situation, but
stab you
I
more.
can't imagine.
Tickle fight!
What? Pillow fight.
Yeah, that's really tough.
We're gonna drop grenades of love.
Yeah, because tickling is definitely seen as a positive thing, right?
Sure.
You tickle people that you
Not
love.
to the tickly.
Well, it can be, though, right? You tickle people you love. You tickle kids.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I mean, your kids. Yeah. Not any kid. You just walk up to kids.
Make sure it's your kids. Hey, kids. It's the tickle monster. Yeah. And that was how Josiah got kicked out of the playground.
But is there a sense of breaking mundanity there? Maybe. There's a sense of...
Well, there has to be, right? No,
there's a sense
usually
of
no one's
novelty
touching
there.
me and making me laugh.
There's a sense of novelty there, right? Can't tickle myself. Has to be foreign.
Unexpected.
Unexpected. Yeah. And there's a mischief there, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's like, I'm going to get you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think we're pretty close to, like, figuring humor out, maybe. I like to think so.
Oh, okay. See, if I had my notebook, I could be writing all this stuff down, and I'd come up with a definition of humor, but I didn't do that today.
I was going to say.
You're going to have to do it on the fly.
Oh, God.
You gotta improv, Chris.
I believe in you.
Do you have faith in me?
Yes.
Oh.
I give my faith.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, that doesn't help me come up with a definition.
Come on, yes it does.
Okay.
I'll give you a chance, and if you're still stuck, we'll
I'll think about it.
Okay, you want to mull it over and
gotta let him mull on it a little bit.
I gotta chew on. I have to chew on an hour worth of information I just processed.
Well, at least you laughed while doing it.
Yeah, sure did.
Yeah, sure did.
Humor is the psychological element of unannounced mischievous. Something like that. If I had a notebook, it'd be a lot better.
But is it an element, or humor is the capacity to release energy from the mundane and
humor is the functional capacity of release from the mundane and mischievous perception of reality.
Mischievous discovery.
Mischievous discovery of reality.
I like that.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll run with it.
Okay.
All right. Honestly, I think on that note, we did pretty good, unless you guys have any more thoughts.
No, it's been real.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining us, to whoever made it this far. We really appreciate you sticking around and listening to us joke about humor. Please like, share, subscribe, do what you can to support the podcast if you like us, and tune in next time to see more Telos Initiative.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.